Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 365 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to work on uranium ammo and making thorium ore. Enjoy. We need to figure out a plan here for processing all of our existing ammo into something we can use. And in fact, it's actually going to be relatively cheap because we're only really replacing the projectiles. We don't need to worry about anything else here. But first things first, we are building a bunch of ammo, so let's just upgrade these machines. So we are reusing the magazines. The only thing we're making that's new are the bullets. They still require the copper, but they won't require the lead here. So first we'll do a requester chest here, asking for every extra casing of the factory to make sure that we use them. And for now, let's get rid of the inserter coming from the magazine machine, because the magazines are going to come from wherever in the factory as well. And in fact, we could put a reverse factory just right here to make sure all of this happens like it should. So the casings are reused, the magazines are reused, the cordite is reused. Let's switch this to uranium, and let's pick up all these extra magazines. And we'll get this ammo in here by just slowly picking it up and having robots deliver it. But we need some in a buffer to get the logistics started. Let's plop it nearby. And speed modules, I suppose. Nope, no. Speed modules in there. Well, that's gonna be a lot of junk. Great. Basically, we'll want a storage chest here, asking for any available ammo magazine, and it will be sent in. That's going to shoot everything into a passive provider chest. I don't think we could use a requester chest because we have buffer chests all over the place. It's nice how most of the junk has made its way out of our warehouse, which is nice. All of that paper finally found somewhere to go. Okay, let's turn logistics on. They pick up all the ammo. And they are taking the magazines over there, but leaving the bullets in this chest. And it does require a lot of bots to do this, but it's also the easy way to do this. Let's do a requester chest right here that is asking for all of the bullets. So it shoots them over there, and of course, logistically, we don't want any bullets. And this is going to have a lot of ammo to go through. Might go faster if we just have multiple of them. It might go faster if we have even more than multiple of them. I'll put as many down as it takes for this to go fast. Out of places for bullets again, but that's fine. We'll turn the junk warehouse back on. They'll be temporarily placed in there and eventually make it back here. And there we go. It's going like nuts, getting rid of all these bullets. But now it's making all of these individual components, most of which we do want here. We do need one more requester chest now, this time asking for the projectiles themselves. They fill them up quickly. And we are eventually going to find ourselves filled with a bunch of plates. And plates are annoying because most of our factory runs on coils. So actually getting rid of plates is kind of difficult. But if they have anywhere in the factory to go, hopefully they will go there. I kind of want to let this thing get through its supply first before we test that. And this setup basically is going to want to have 30 items a second, and it gets that. So this is a lot of uranium, but do we want to use drones for it or use robots? The problem with drones is like this, where you end up with many thousands of it sitting around not getting used, because the amount that sits in the warehouse depends on how many drones you have set to the task. So if we only have one drone on it, there won't be much resources, but it'll also take them forever to get this filled up. So in this unique situation, I think we might want to use robots. But we have to be careful because our setup needs to have uranium in order to do everything. That's the thing about like uranium and plutonium, and to a lesser extent thorium processing, is that it's all based on your input of uranium. So you do not want to run out of the stuff. And that right now we have a setting where it needs to have at least 20,000 uranium in here to start processing plutonium. And it's trying to fill it up to 23,000. So how about, let's get rid of this buffer chest and do a passive provider. And we have two conditions that need to be true for this thing to run. We'll run a red wire over to this one and a green one over here. And we'll set this to specifically uranium. Is that the chest has less than, to get a reasonable throughput here, let's say 1,000 items in it. It gets a green signal. And the other one is checking this warehouse. And let's say it has to have more than 21,000. Although, a lot of these numbers for this warehouse are unnecessarily large, because as long as we have control inputs for all of these different systems, it'll work fine. Like having 10,000 resources in here was too much. That's why I set it down to 100. So this is kind of the same. So how about these controls are trying to just get it to 1,000. For this to run, it needs to have at least 500, giving it a certain priority. But then this one needs to be above 250. And ultimately what that's going to do is give plutonium processing higher priority than sending this ammo into the network. But uranium processing itself has the highest priority because no matter what, it sends its uranium out. If our level is very low, it will stop using it for plutonium and stop using it for ammo, but still keep it on hand for uranium. And if both conditions are true, we'll get 2 green squares. So if green squares is equal to 2, the inserter can swing. And it is. But we will make our request for uranium and let's say 1,000, so it's not too much. Although I'm putting it on the wrong belt, because it would actually need to be on this one. Okay, we got back down to the bullets now. So those go in. And they're getting turned into just the plates. And yeah, right now the plates are not being picked up. Well, the copper can just go right here, because we do need to put the copper plates back into this. So if I do 1,000 for copper, is it going to pick it up from weird places or just bring it here? Well, it seems like it's bringing it here so far. And there's their uranium on flying robots. And there they go. What kind of total input would all of these need? Oh, actually quite a bit. Anyway, it made the ammo. And this needs to be switched over. And that machine can certainly stand to be faster. Let's see, that inserter's a little wrong. Well, I think we've basically maxed out the belt here. Because it is absolutely grinding through it. It is saving the casings. It's saving the copper. It's saving the cordite. And it's saving the magazines. Now the only thing it's using up is the uranium. First, let's convert these delivery points. And then after that, we can actually pick up the ammo from all of these chests, and then eventually all of the turrets themselves. It's going to be kind of a gradual process here, because it's a lot of ammo we have to take care of. A little annoying, but we have to change the request and then pick up the ammo. Luckily, the gun turrets don't actually run that often, so it's not too dangerous to try to take care of all of these first. Hey, the ammo's being delivered already. Let's make this a snap to grid. No tiles. And I think we'd want to do it as 18. There we go. Well, it's kind of annoying because this thing is going fairly quickly, but I think we're going to need to have multiple reverse factories kind of working down the line. One breaking the magazines down, one breaking the bullets down, and one breaking the projectiles down. And the way we can do this is set these as a whitelist where the only thing we want this to break down are the bullets. We need the same thing here, telling it that we only want to break down the projectiles themselves, if they make it that far. So it's kind of a mess. Hopefully it'll clean itself up in a little bit. And then when it does, we can see how it works for real. This setup seems to have just about equalized. So first we put in the ammo magazines. They get broken down into the magazine and the bullet. The magazines get picked up, but the bullets get broke down further into the casing, the projectile, and the cordite. Most of those get pulled away, but the projectile itself gets turned into the lead and copper. The copper gets recycled, and then the lead is sent to where it needs to go. Now you notice that we're at 1,000 now for our uranium, so it's going to start metering in here to keep it topped up. And as it goes down, these machines are going to turn on, and hey, that's a uranium-234 right there. It's a little bit more green than everything around it. And just about got through this buffer. Then we can put the rest of these ammo magazines in and see how this whole thing runs. Hopefully it runs pretty smoothly, because right now it's kind of tripping on itself. Oh yeah, this setup has definitely got itself fired up now. We are basically going to max this thing out and making uranium. But this is the most that this setup has run in quite a while. And it's about to get at full blast once this clears out all the way. And then we'll be making ammo magazines as quickly as we can. Definitely running uranium hard, and I see that the uranium reactor is running. Certainly it's not making any power right now, but the reactor is on. In fact, a lot of these reactors are on. And that actually makes sense, because this setup was based around our exact number of reactors. So if this is running at full blast, then we would expect our full uranium setup to be running. At least statistically running. It all is probability, so it's not completely predictable. Okay, the last of the bullets have finally made their way through that. Alright, everything is quiet. So, robot should come by and place all of these magazines in here. Out of our junk. Kind of takes a lot of work to recycle these, but we had so many of them that it was essentially worth it. Okay. Looks like the whole cycle is working now. And still working on getting ammo in all of these. But I suppose if we come through here and fly very fast, junk our inventory, and all the robots are probably chasing after us now. Well. Oh, we ended up picking up uranium somehow. How did that work? Ah, I see. It's capable of putting both uranium and regular ammo in here. Well, I think the solution here then is to pick up every one of these turrets with robots. Of course, all the magazines and everything are going to fly everywhere through the logistics network. But they will eventually get to where they need to go. I didn't know the guns could hold more than one type of ammo, or maybe that's a modded turret thing where they get multiple ammo slots. I don't know how that would work, which one it would choose. Would it just shoot the best ammo it had, or would it shoot the one that was in the first slot? We have our tile now. So that works. So we'll just go like this. And hopefully they all make it, and they all get their ammo. Well, they're making it. Look at those waves of bots. And of course they run out of power right before they get there, so it's not as exciting anymore. But they replace them and put the ammo in. That's good to know for future walls where we'll just need to pick up everything and place them all back down. Curiously, we found 2 more uranium-234s. Which is fantastic, except it's only at 50% for the crafting time. So, we're going to be waiting a while on that. Well, before we continue, we kind of want to wait for them to go through all of these magazines, because this is the limiting factor here. If there's nowhere to put the magazines, then we're going to have some trouble. But that's nice to see, that this thing is running at full blast, powering all of our reactors and making uranium again, after spending so long on plutonium. But once we get thorium set up, essentially all 3 of these are going to be running at the same time, more or less. Kind of like it is now. We're going to have to go through all of this curium first before that'll happen. We have a new sorting type we need to do. At least one sorting type. We might want to do all 3, and they might just barely fit. Well, 2 of them would fit without tearing stuff out. But these sorting methods using the crystals are kind of secondary. Chrome is also a secondary resource. So we're just going to want to sort the tungsten directly. And I think we remove that from our plan. So let's just make a new one. The numbers are probably going to be the same. It's 60 a second with some productivities, but one pollution cleaning in there. It needs 20.84. That sounds similar to what we did before. It totally is. So basically, we're going to want to copy the exact same thing. Put that in there, except pull out the sorting facility so we can just dump our new ones in here. Of course, I did that wrong, I noticed. I did the tungsten again, but we actually want thorium, and that actually makes a difference because you get half of the amount of thorium out of it. So this actually makes the setup a lot bigger, and it actually becomes smaller if we add more productivity modules. So could we even fit 34 of them in here? Copying this one would make more sense probably. And we actually could, just barely. But only if it's 3 productivities, because if it's 2, then the setup becomes bigger. So this one is going to be a little polluting. Alright, same thing. Plop it in there. Except get rid of the sorting machines so we can plop our recipe and module complement in here. And we'll let that get built. And I see our 234 reactors are finally running now. It's been a long time, but they are online again. Looking great. And lots of ammo to go through. So that's going to go on for some time. One thing though that needs our attention is our tungsten processing and this calcium chloride, because it is definitely increasing. We are not using it as fast as we are creating it. I was hoping that just doing cobalt would be enough. And definitely these inserters are set correctly where it is off. So it's not like they've been inserting in here, it's just these are also full. So we have something interesting that we can do. One is we can upgrade our titanium to use it as well. But we might be into the same problem. But there is something else that's interesting that we can do. It's something we never would have thought of when cobalt was limited. But there are recipes that use cobalt optionally. So let's search cobalt ingots, and we see that besides going into cobalt steel and cobalt powder, which they are required for, there are recipes for titanium, iron, and steel, which they can go into. And right now, we're only doing that if there is a surplus of cobalt. There really never is, because our ore bus is quite well balanced with itself now and can easily manage itself with no issues. However, what if we intentionally used cobalt just to get rid of the calcium chloride? Because we can do that. We can make titanium, iron, and steel run specifically for cobalt, but not because of being overloaded on cobalt, but rather calcium chloride. And if that isn't enough, there is titanium. But the problem with titanium is it only goes into itself. If we have to rely on titanium for this, then perhaps we would tell it to only make it using regular titanium ingots, which would maximize the amount of titanium that was consumed, because all of these other recipes use less titanium, so we would have to prioritize it there. But we need to look at titanium, iron, and steel, wherever those are. Well, titanium is right next door, and it looks like we don't have that method hooked up. It's probably because it requires chrome, and that is not something we can easily make. We can force it out using our newly acquired crystals, but it's only going to make 1 chrome for all of this other junk, and chrome can't really be made directly. It's essentially always a byproduct. So I think using cobalt in that way it's just going to be so limited in effect that it's not even worth bothering with. However, iron and steel, definitely, and we've already set those up, which makes this a lot easier. So the way this works right now is either cobalt has to be above 60 or nickel above 20 for this to turn on. But we can put a third one in there and say, if calcium chloride is above 1000, turn on. And now the signal is there, but nothing's running because it's full. Strangely enough, this one's been running, and I'm not terribly sure how that was the case. But maybe it's just that nickel does bump up above 20,000 a lot, and we use it. It kind of surprises me, but I guess it's been working silently. up until this point. I was gonna just walk over there, but maybe we should fly over the tracks because those trains are fast. Conditions are the same. So let's just put the same thing in, and now that we do that, because we are overloaded on calcium chloride, it's gonna start using all of that cobalt. And it's not gonna run very long. It's just gonna fill up this steel to full, and then it's gonna stop. And one thing that's interesting is uranium ore is really low. We are using it, and in fact, this is showing that this process is working properly, where we have used up all of the output, but it's not putting too much into here, where it's staying at around 500. And you see we have lots of uranium in there, and of course, working on lots of 234 as well. Wow, despite having so much tungsten, it's basically all gone again. That was fast. We are going through a surprising amount of it. Well, it's a good thing we took care of it. But weirdly enough, we haven't been placing any more ore sorting facilities, so perhaps the recipe changed or something broke here. So, sorting facility 4. Wow, it's all the way up there. Okay. It doesn't have sorting facility 3. Sigh. Okay. Where's sorting facility 3? It's over there. This one... they're there. Ah, it's probably just not on the request here. Okay, well, to do that, I'll just pick that up, put it down, and plop it in. So I guess that was just one thing that wasn't quite upgraded. But there they go. Man, we actually have a surplus of 5 pieces of uranium-235 now in the warehouse. It's been a long time since that's been the case, but it's looking good. It's just going to keep running for a long time while we fill up on ammo, and then it's going to balance out again. Well, that research completed. We have more inventory slots again, and now we need to pick more stuff. Yeah, let's just go down the list, I suppose, of random things. This would be something that would be interesting, that right now, our logistics chests currently have the size of 48 here, but there are higher tiers of them we can get. If we mix it in with the brass chest, we would get a 64 slot version, and with the titanium, we would get an 80 slot version. That actually would be kind of useful because it has come up that those logistics chests have been insufficiently sized, so sure. And I guess since we're thinking about logistics, let's do the stack inserter capacity increase. And how about the regular inserter capacity increase? And having even better bots would be nice, so an extra slot and an extra 65% speed for all of them. Sound pretty good. And the transport drones would like some upgrades, but those are actually pretty expensive compared to everything else, so maybe I'll save those for a little later. How about we'll do the artillery wagon? Probably won't use it, but we got lots of research to complete here. Okay, the control signal for thorium is going to be similar to tungsten. There's only one way we're making it, so it can be pretty limited in its amounts. At mostly full blast, it's very close. But it looks like the resources just aren't there. This one isn't even running at all, which it really should be. So it can't get rid of the geodes. Interesting, because this is not fast enough. Do all of these have a flaw where they can't run through the geodes fast enough? Let's calculate it here. Where if every one of these was running, it would have 15 geodes a second. Hopefully they're set up to like nears and fars. They seem to be. And this one can chew through 18 geodes a second and would produce 27. And then this one is only 10. That is definitely not fast enough. So if we do all of these combined, power of rate calculator here, that since essentially these items on the bottom are byproducts, we want them to be negative, which means the machines are faster than the resources they are receiving. Since it is positive, it means it is slower than the resources it is receiving, which is bad. We could upgrade the machine, but also that would require robots when we can just put a massive speed module in there and see what happens. And if we do that, there still is a tiny, slight increase to dust here. It's not quite fast enough. Let's do 2 speed modules and the pollution cleaning. So now if we check it, they're all negative, which means they are fast enough to clear out all of the extra resources. So now we need to do a very strange set of modules here, because we want to do it on a liquefier 3 with 2 speed modules and 1 pollution. That's interesting that that flaw has existed essentially since this thing was built. That was a long time ago. But I guess we just never were at the point where both Tier 2 and Tier 3 was running so fast that we noticed a problem. So, is this doing a good job here? Yep, it is slowly increasing it above where it was at 500, which means it's probably being used on uranium now. Oh yes, uranium is getting full blast of both sides. We have a warning for that sapphirite vein. It's been a while since we ever paid any attention to it because it's so far in the middle of nowhere. And if it's a vein, that means it's Tier 2 out of 3. So we could scan this to get more resources out of it. So we'll have to give it some time and see how it works. So we need to deliver the resources here. Just use what we have and send them straight in and not really worry about it. Also, these belts have a very long way to go. And the pollution, despite all of this, is actually pretty decent. There's a lot of it around here, but all of the farms are working hard, and well, it's hitting these biters, but those aren't the ones that matter. The ones that matter are over here, and in certain situations, the pollution never even makes it there. So, this is acceptable to me, because it's all contained in this one area. It's not a cloud that's as big as the factory. Well, most of this is placed now, so we can connect the belts and see how it works at full blast, at least for a little while. Well, this stopped because no sulfuric acid. Is the factory actually out of sulfuric acid? Alright, well I guess we gotta unhook this again. No, it's here. It's just probably not making it the whole way. That would be interesting. Let's follow this pipe around. Alright, well, it's relatively full at the source, but then it gets to here and suddenly it's really low. I wonder how much this whole setup actually makes. So it's a lot more than we would expect out of a pipe. Okay, let's see if we can run these pipes mostly side by side, and we're getting a warning for crushed stone. And yes, it is indeed overloaded. Well, that's probably because lack of sulfuric acid, so none of these things can work properly. Yeah, that is the problem. So for now, we can send 2 pipes up here and see if we can get them all to line up. Are we going to be able to do this straight through without any issues? Oh wow, every once in a while you get lucky. That's getting shot into there. And now that pump is running, that pump is running, and they're not filling up, but it's probably because all these different machines all throughout the factory need to actually fill up. And this is something we can get away with because it's 2 pipes up here, and then when they get to this point, they basically one goes left and one goes right, so then they split apart again. So we can get away with not putting 2 pipes in if this is all we need. And certainly we are chewing through all of the acid we had on hand. Oh wow, and through shooting all of those cannons, we emptied out another warehouse of explosives. I don't think there was much we could do to this besides having a setup that doesn't have unified pipes like this. And even then, it would only help us so much because then we would get to this point. But it's possible that we were just low on sulfuric acid, and eventually it's going to balance out on both sides. We just need to give it a little time, because it's been dealing with this issue for a while now. Our storage tank is now filling up, which means that this is enough for the factory. It's just a question now is, does the acid get all the way to the back where it needs to go? So we kind of have to follow this thing. Depends on what the back is. Well, there's a train there, so that's fine. So it's an ore processing. Oh man. All the way down at copper, and copper is running fine, and manganese is running, and it's fine. So if we follow it the other direction and keep following it back, do we still have enough? And it looks like it, because the very last thing is, of course, the setup we're just working on, and it's positive. So I think this will actually work for now. You can go through your 238 so fast that you need to have logic to hold it back, so you always have some left over for your other processes. Our average number of uraniums per reactor is at 63.7 because so much of it is probably just sitting right here, but it's an on average thing. But actually, after we do thorium, we may find ourselves with way more of this than we had before, and we will need to expand this setup. But for now, it's a low priority fuel that can just constantly run as required. Okay, that was a detour, but now that we have our asset again, we should be able to test this setup. Hopefully there's still some buffer for us to use. And of course it saves right when we turn it on. But yeah, seems pretty good. The important thing is that the output is a full red belt. And it is. That's a lot of slag, surprisingly. Now we just need to wait for the rest of this to get down here, and I guess we're also waiting on robots to deliver these belts, but we can also help them. Alright, everything has arrived. And I guess I didn't need to do this little squiggly here, because we only have 3 inputs. So let's straighten that out right there. At least a little bit. And watch our thorium get made. And there it is. That this form of ore sorting is basically as deep down the chain as you can get. That requires pretty much everything. It's 4 tiers of the mixtures that you have to go through, which in itself is 8 steps long. Plus, you need up to tier 3 of the regular ores and all of those steps. And then you mix it all together, and then you finally get your thorium. Oh yeah, and we have to set this too. There we go. Numbers going up. And something must be double counting here, because we don't have 2,000 in here. It's actually kind of hard to track. I think I'll just remove these test signals, because I'm not sure where the wire problem is, but they're really not needed anymore. So we'll hook it up. Now we get the proper number again, and I don't have to dig through all of that to find out where the problem was. And research is continuing. Let's grab the next tier of artillery wagon to get it off the list. And how about we upgrade our lasers? That's going to take a while, but so does everything else on this list at this point. And ammo is basically done. It's still got a little bit of cordite and shell casings and whatnot. So the way we're going to do it this time is pick up the entire wall of guns, inserters, and chests. And then we need something we can place over and over again. So we flip it the correct direction, put it in there, and then fly up as fast as we can go. It's going to take a long while, but ultimately they're going to bring the ammo back here, and it will continue to get processed. Man, that is a lot of robots doing stuff. Okay, we've got some calculations to do, and it's all related to thorium. But that's going to have to wait until next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.